and welcome to the latest Fundraising Nest interview. This is a very special one, and this is in celebration of International Women's Day. I am delighted that Pat Blundell is with me in the Fundraising Nest studio today, and this is a really special one for me. Like I said, it's to celebrate International Women's Day, and I think it's about inclusion, it's about women, inspiring women. And I think in this day and age, we see lots of women like myself sharing their story, and younger people, slightly older people. And I think there's a real missed opportunity for people of a certain generation who have gone through adversity, come out the other side, but not really had the opportunity or the platform to share their story. I'm going to talk to Pat today. I do want to let you know that we're going to be talking about some domestic abuse issues. So I do want to give you a trigger warning there if anyone's experienced that. But you're also going to get to meet Pat and the wonderful kind of journey she's gone through and got to the other side. So Pat,
yes,
thank you for coming all the way to Eltham today. We had a chat before we went live, and your story is incredible. So I think we're going to kind of go back to the beginning. Tell me, where were you born? And
I was born at Hawthorn. We lived in a house at Hawthorn. Yes, I grew up there, went to school there, and left there when my father got a war service home, and we moved to Burwood. So I was actually born and bred.
Melbourne. Yep.
Yes.
And as a youngster, I know, I think you lost your father quite young.
Yes, he died during the war at Darwin, so I never really got to know him. Yes.
And describe to me what was life like as a child for Pat?
I was well looked after, well fed, well dressed, but no love at all from either my father or my mother. A very cold relationship. I remember giving her a kiss for my 13th birthday when I got a camera, and then I apologised. No, it was very sad, very cold. And
yeah. I think when you come from a different generation, and how you kind of raise your children, look after your children, it was a different time, wasn't it? But would it be fair to say your mum was probably, regardless of the era, she was a hard woman?
She was hard. Yes, she was very hard. She was we always had the feeling she was hiding something, but we didn't know what it was. But yes, she wouldn't tell us her age. She wouldn't tell us anything of her background or anything. When I asked her, Barry wasn't interested, my brother, but I was. But I got nothing out of it. No.
And so when your father passed away, you had a dad, your mum remarried and met someone who you know as dad.
Yes.
Although your stepdad, he was your dad.
Yes, definitely. He brought us up, he paid for our education and everything. So yes, definitely. Yeah.
So coming from that kind of, I guess, tense atmosphere, when you're walking on eggshells quite often.
A lot. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, they weren't abusive or anything. They were just plain cold.
Yeah. So that kind of led on to, I guess, you seeking, at that time, women left home and got married. I mean, that's kind of what happened.
Yes.
That was the expectation, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, well, actually, she wanted us, my brother and I, to stay and help pay for the rent on the house, or the rent on the house. And but I ended up, I met this man, and he was wonderful, I thought. And
so we'll just stop there, because this next part is where this is the next period of Pat's life was quite challenging. But at the beginning, you were 18, and you met this man.
Yes.
He was kind. You went dancing. You did the things that 18-year-olds did.
Yes.
What was Melbourne like at that time? What year are we talking about here?
1958.
So
and we went dancing. We used to go to.
So do you remember things like the beat, like the music changing, like from what kind of music were you listening to at that age?
Oh, I can't remember the actual music, but I know we were singing to. We went to dances where Ernie Sigley was there, and Heather Horwood, and all the oldies, and
I mean,
the ball at RSL, every Saturday night,
Fabulous. So you met this man, and He was just 2 or 3 years older than you, same kind of
Yes.
generation,
Yes.
and that led to you getting married.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having to get married. Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Do you look back on that now and feel that even then it wasn't wholeheartedly, this is, this is a man I've fallen in love with for the rest of my life? Or did it feel much more practical?
No, I really was in love with him. He really just seemed to be the right person. He just,
Yeah.
just looked after me, treated me like a lady, did everything right in the book, and I was quite prepared to marry him. Yes.
Yeah. And so was your wedding day quite looking back, was that a nice day?
Yes, we got married at the Camberwell Methodist Church, and no, it was a nice wedding. We didn't have a lot of people there. I had to borrow a wedding dress, and but on the day it was a nice day. Yes.
Great. And then so you set up home with your husband,
Yes.
and you had Michelle, which is the reason we know each other. Michelle works for the Precision Group as the operations manager, and when the opportunity for me to do this, Michelle was the one who introduced the idea of interviewing her mum. So Michelle, thank you for introducing me to your lovely mum. And so then you had your first child, Michelle.
Yes. Lovely experience.
Yeah.
Turned into through a car accident, but that's fine.
Yeah.
She came out all right.
Yeah. And then things quickly went downhill.
Yes, he left first when she was the day before she turned 1. And that was a bit embarrassing, and I didn't know why, and I had to explain to the people that brought their kids to the party that he wasn't there. And from then on, it just happened quite a few times.
So his behaviour, your husband's behaviour changed quite quickly after you got married, and he left for the first time when, young mum with a tiny baby.
Yep.
And then then things kind of progressively got worse.
Yes. I don't know what stage it was, but he went to a funeral of a baby that died at cot death, and he came home under the weather and he belted me because he said, "Don't you ever do that to my children." And I think I had 2 at the time, and Craig was a baby, and I said to Michelle, "Go across the road," because we were in shock at that time. And after that, it was quite easy for him.
So this first physical assault was also a huge emotional assault to you. This is somebody you saw no red flags.
No,
there was no indicators prior to this. This is really important, I think, for all women of any age. Is there is no indicate. Domestic abuse can come out of nowhere, and there was no red flags,
nothing at all.
I think that's really important for Pat sharing that. The violence kind of, that then became, once it happened the first time, is it safe to say that almost gave him permission to make it the norm?
I think so, yes. And I didn't tell anybody, I just sort of kept it to myself. They weren't a lot of beltings, it was just a lot of hits, and quite a few hits at one time. And then the verbal abuse comes out, and sometimes I think that's worse than the beltings themselves. And
it is, and this is what erodes your self-esteem, your self-confidence before we recorded this. Yeah,
very quickly. Yes.
What about, you shared with me, you kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? I'm cooking the dinner right, I'm looking after the kids, I'm doing everything that a wife is meant to do. What have I done to make this happen? When we now know it was absolutely nothing to do with you.
No.
But at that time, we're talking about in the 60s,
yes.
Nobody spoke about this kind of things. And I believe you did let your parents know.
Yes, and my father said, well, you made your bed, you lie in it, because they liked Ray. And my father even said to Ray, if you ever need money, come to me. And they liked him as much as I did first off, but they just didn't like me, full stop.
And although we can make excuses about it being in the period of time, we also know there's women right now living in situations like this, that mentality, sadly, I think it's getting better, may still exist, that it's your business, it's nothing to do with anyone else, we can't get involved. But we know that's the reason we're having these kind of interviews is that actually it's not okay, it's never okay.
Yeah.
And I think one of the sadder parts is that it got to the point where it got quite bad and you called the police.
Yes, I called the police one time when he'd locked me out of the house. The kids were inside the house. I had the three of them at the time. And it was cold and it was wet and there was no mobile phone, so I had to walk quite a while to get hold of a phone. And I don't even know where the money came from at that time, but anyhow, I rang the police. They didn't come out till morning. And by that time, Ray had a sleep. And he answered the door and said, "No, I didn't know I'd done it." And then I told them that I wanted him to leave, and he was told, or the police asked me who pays the rent, and I said he does, and he said, well, he can come and go as he likes. So Ray had actually left, come to think of it, he'd left and then come in that night because I said he's been away and he wants to come back and I don't want him back. And the police said, well, he can come and go because he is paying the rent.
And how powerless must Pat, I mean, I can't imagine, it's hard to be in a situation where you've been put out the house for the night, your kids are there, you're scared, you're vulnerable, you seek what you think is the police, somebody has to help me, my family aren't, they don't care, and the police says, this man pays the bills, so let him come and go. I mean, I'm so glad life has moved forward, but that doesn't negate what you went through. So at that point, you were just stuck. You were powerless. You had to let this man continue to be in your life, come and go as he pleases, do what he wants, continue the alcohol, and you were kind of you had nowhere to go.
Well, I had nowhere to go, and I also had no money of my own because I didn't work or anything, so I had to rely on his money to look after the kids. And then when he left, I had to go and get on the dole thing for families at that time, but that wasn't very pleasant.
And that's something, the coercive control now is actually against the law, which is, a partner does not have to, it's when they control you. And what you spoke earlier, you wanted to get a job, but he didn't want you to get a job because you might meet someone. You weren't allowed to learn to drive. No. He really controlled every element.
He said I was too silly to get a license. He said I was too dumb.
So just relentless levels of and unbearable kind of abuse. So this went on for a long time. You were actually in that marriage for 20 years, is that right?
Yes.
And he left on and off many times throughout the years.
5 times. Yeah.
But during that whole time, there was periods where you had to find food for the kids and protect the kids as much as you can from what was going on because they weren't exposed to it.
Well, I learned to steal for the kids. I would take a trolley down to the supermarket and I would fill it up half with meat and put the other stuff on top, but I'd only put what I wanted on top of the shelf to pay for. The rest I left in the trolley. At that stage, nobody looked to see whether he was stealing or not, but if it wasn't for that, the kids wouldn't have had the food that they had. I went to op shops to buy them clothes, so they always looked nice and, they came first in my life. They still do come first in my life.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, the strength of character too. I mean, it's an incredible story. It's about resilience and strength, and for over a prolonged period of time. I think we can all, 20 years. You went through this, and I know that when you finally made the decision to leave, that was a decision that was a tough one, wasn't it? Because it did involve a situation with the children.
Yes, the 2 eldest ones had left home by this stage, and there was 2 younger ones left, and they had encouraged me to leave, and I found a unit not so far away, and in the meantime, my husband was belting my 13-year-old child. And her brother ran up to tell me, and I called the police as I was trying to get down there, and they came up, and the daughter was so stressed out. And the policeman said that the only way we could do anything, because it was a domestic problem, it wasn't their problem, was for the young daughter to charge her father. And I wouldn't have that. And when he was leaving, I said, what have I got to do? Wait for him to kill one of my children? And the policeman said, yes. And he said, I'm afraid so, ma'am. Got in the car and drove away. So over the years, I had no support from the police at all.
stop for it. I guess I've heard this story, and that's why I can listen to it right now. But to be told that the only way this man can be taken out of, potentially be taken away from this family, is if he caused serious harm or death to one of the children,
Yes.
is absolutely appalling and
Yes.
horrendous, and
Yes.
and almost it's not ironic. Him, thank goodness that the only silver lining out of that horrendous story is that that was enough for you to finally break free for good, you know.
Yes. Well, I had actually left at the time,
Yeah,
but thinking that if I was out of the area, that he would look after those two kids. But he didn't. He also had a girlfriend not so far away, and he was going off there and leaving the kids at home. And after that, the young daughter moved down the road with her friends, and the youngest son went with his father to the new girlfriend's place for a while. And yeah, it just,
I mean, there's many layers to this story,
yes,
and we're going to. I think Pat shared enough for you to understand that what she's shared is literally the tip of the iceberg, and I guess we wanted to share the the life that that she led then. And now fast forward a little bit, because there's some good, some good. Well, look at her, she's beautiful. So there's a good end, but actually there's also, last year had a little blip. But you then were able, so you left, and your life kind of, what we'd all expect, a sense of freedom.
it was. Yes, it was. I was sort of glad to get out there. Still worried about the children, of course, but yeah, I was. Yeah, I think I did the right thing at the time.
Yes.
I had my doubts because, mothers shouldn't leave their children. I couldn't cope with that very well. But they supported me all the way, even the ones that weren't home. One was married and one was in the army, but they supported me. But I still felt guilty leaving two children at home.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, mother's guilt never leaves you, and I can fully empathise with that one. But you learnt to drive?
Yes. The first thing I did was get my licence, and I bought a little car off a neighbour.
And you drove here today, and if anyone that knows how to get to my house, the roads are really rubbish around here. So you were more than capable of driving.
I've been driving for 40 years now, so I'm making up for lost time.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, more than clever enough to drive. Yes. And you also worked for a period. So
yes, I ended up getting a couple of jobs. The first three, they all went bankrupt, which was quite funny at the time. And then I got a job at Nestle, and I worked there for 18 years and loved it. And then never got a job there in the warehouse, and we lived out the rest of our working lives at Nestle and retired. Neville was 63 and I was 61.
Neville, and so this is Pa, as he's known to many people, came into your life when not too long after you got your you broke away, and this man, from what I gather, has taught you what it's like to be loved, to give you flowers and encourage you and support you. And
yes, I needed him at the time that he arrived, I can tell you. We just met having a cup of coffee or down the street, and we bumped into each other. He'd left his wife, I'd left my husband, and we got talking, and Bob's your uncle, as they say. He's just been so wonderful. He loves the children. The children just can't get enough of him. The grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, they just adore the ground he walks on. And I'm so happy.
So happy for you that you've found a man and found someone that treats you the way that you deserve to be treated. But I also know, we'll just, before we go on to the next part, that kind of, we also briefly spoke about the prolonged trauma of feeling worthless, selfless, the guilt of decisions you had to make stays with you forever, really, doesn't it?
It does. I've had a lot of guilty feelings but then I think I did what I thought I did was right at the time. Maybe they weren't. I think I made a few mistakes. Maybe I should have left a bit earlier. The kids mightn't have gone through what they went through, but I did want to educate the kids, and I felt the best things were sort of worth that.
And I think what you probably don't see, and I see, and I've only just, the resilience, the tenacity, and the hope that you give people that there is life after the most the hardest of times.
Right.
You found someone you love. Your children are despite we've all, everyone's got their issues, but they're well-rounded kind of people, and you've come through this, which is so amazing, and you have to be proud of that. What a strong woman to have gone through that, and then more than anything, give love another chance, because so many people would maybe potentially turn like your mother and just shut down, become cold, but you kept your heart open.
Well, it's only, I think, probably two bits, because we knew Neville. He lived down the road from us, so we used to always feel sorry for him and the way he was treated. So I probably would not have got with anybody else, but because I knew him, and then as I said, we bumped into each other and life happened.
But how beautiful that despite how much that your first husband tried to break you, he didn't break you enough to...
Nearly.
No, but he didn't, your soul was still wanted the things that you got in life.
Yes.
So I think that's wonderful. And you travelled with Neville. You've been able to travel.
Yes, we've been to France because Craig got married in France. So Michelle, the two girls, and I and Neville went over to France to see our son get married, and we've been to America thanks to Michelle turning 50 because she wanted us to go over. And we've done the Amsterdam cruises. We've done a couple of cruises, and we're just so happy. It's ridiculous.
But there's
making up for lost time.
There is, but there's another curveball to this story, and if Pat hadn't been through enough in her life, last year she was diagnosed with breast cancer.
No, ovarian
cancer. Yes. Sorry, ovarian cancer.
Yes, that was a bit of a shock to everybody, but the kids proved their love for me. They were there for me at every chemo session. The son come down from Queensland to stay with me for 3 months. He come into the chemo session with me, and without their support, I would not have got through it. And I love them dearly for that. Yes.
I mean, going through cancer is I mean, you've gone through the other side, but the treatment, the cancer journey, all of it, that in itself is huge. I mean, and you've come through and you've survived and you got through the other side. You jokingly mentioned earlier, and that that almost wasn't easy, but
I didn't go through a lot of what of others. Luckily, I didn't have all the sicknesses that supposedly goes with it. And yes, it wasn't a good journey, but
you faced
I've got through it.
Yes, you just faced it with the same. Like, I think that's the resilience that kicks in from a life like through adversity.
Right.
It's almost like, oh, here we go. Okay, well, we can face this. And when you faced enough things in life, there's something kicks in, isn't there? And you're like, okay, I can get through this as well.
Well, when the kids keep saying, "We're proud of you, Mum. Keep going. You're strong." You just got to go with them. You've got to believe in them, and say,
you've got to believe in yourself. You're one strong woman. I'm just so delighted that we've been able to share this kind of inspirational story about a woman. Pat, looking back on your life, and this is probably a really hard question to answer, what advice, so maybe not so much in terms of the decisions you made with your marriage and stuff, but as a woman who's the age you're at, who's gone through things, what advice would you give to your younger self that you didn't know then that you know now, just in terms of how to approach life?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
So for me, I think one of the things when I say what I wish I know, that is one of the things I wish I told my younger self was, don't care what other people think. So just in the bigger picture stuff, like when I look back, I wasted so much time when I was younger on what other people thought. Or
I did, yes, I did think that. I was a bit embarrassed all the time. Where's Ray? Oh, he's left me, and what's going on? No, I did feel low. I did feel embarrassed. I didn't like what I had to talk about sometimes and explain what had happened sometimes. Yeah. So I just sort of say, just keep moving on, and I don't know that you should talk a lot about it to other people. Other people just don't believe you half the time anyhow. So I did keep it to myself, but I think now there's that much there for everybody now, which wasn't there for me in the 50s and the 60s. So just go to anybody you can and get help.
That was what I was going to say. A message to any women, regardless of their age or context, any woman right now in a kind of domestic kind of abusive relationship, what's your advice to them?
Get help. You've got help out there. Get out as soon as possible. I think I made the mistake by hanging around a bit too long. I think sometimes that's the wrong move.
Yeah.
But now that it's happened, it's probably the best move. But
Yeah.
I think each individual is different. But you have got more help than I've ever had. So go to all these places and just ask for help. And I hope sincerely that you get it.
Pat, it's been so wonderful. One of my favourite interviews of today. What a beautiful way to celebrate International Women's Day 2024.
Thank
you. I say a huge thanks to Pat for coming in and joining us today. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you at the next episode of Fundraising Nest Conversation with Friends. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.